Hello everybody and welcome back to another Torchwood Big Finish audio drama review. In today's review we're going to be taking a look at The Red List as written by James Goss, featuring Sophie Aldred as Ace alongside Mr. Colchester as portrayed by Paul Clayton. This release is available to order now on the Big Finish website. The physical CD is £10.99 and the download is £8.99. It can also be purchased as a part of a bundle on the Big Finish website alongside the other Torchwood releases which have came out this year. Now, for those of you that watch this channel on a regular basis, you will know that I'm a bit behind on reviews at the minute. I normally do reviews in like clusters and you'll get a lot at once. That is because I've been doing lots of uni work. I'm now doing a master's and I'm quite behind on that. Therefore, I'm kind of fitting in reviews when I can, but one of the things that I love about Big Finish is that I'm able to listen to it to kind of escape from all of that. And it's rather nice to be back actually being able to sit down and discuss a Torchwood story for once, because as always with this range, and something that it continues to do, is provide excellent escapism encapsulated within a 1 hour audio drama.
I was absolutely delighted when I found out that Mr. Colchester was finally making his debut within the Torchwood monthly range. He is one of the shining beacons of light within the Aliens Among Us Torchwood continuation series, which sadly I did listen to, however never got around to reviewing after being too busy. But not only do we have the return of Mr. Colchester, we also have the return of Ace Mcshane, as portrayed by Sophie Aldred. By this point it is surely only a matter of time before we get to see A Charitable Earth get its own spin-off series, and this Torchwood story may give us a little bit of an insight into what to expect in the future. Ace is now the head of her very own organisation, built from her memories of the travels with the Doctor and her aim to help others throughout the world. Mr. Colchester, a civil servant, and Ace are self-isolating in a hotel room after arriving in a country under alien invasion, and before they can do their job, they must live in confinement as the country burns around them under the control of President De Santos.
So this Torchwood release is in fact a little bit different to some of the previous Torchwood main range stories that we've had, because Mr. Colchester is a character of which originated from the Torchwood continuation series, of course Aliens Among Us and Gods Among Us. He is an ex-civil servant, he is one of the older Torchwood members, and he is an absolute brilliant figure within the Aliens Among Us series. I found him a really enjoyable character to listen to, and it is a great joy actually being able to listen to him within this story as well, because unlike with the Aliens Among Us series, of course very much like Torchwood itself, you are bouncing between the various team members to deliver the story, with maybe the odd exception here and there. This episode kind of focuses on him as a Torchwood member and him going on his own mission. Of course these aliens have invaded a country and President De Santos is in charge, and let's face it, he's not particularly doing a very good job, and instead Paul Clayton, or Mr. Colchester, is sat in his hotel room isolating while simultaneously watching President De Santos on the TV screen with constant news coverage and basically people saying how excellent he is, going to all sorts of coronations and celebrations whilst his country is quite literally on fire. I like where this story actually commentates on power and kind of handling a disaster situation, and how these people who are in charge basically seem untouchable, and you have people lurking in the realms that also work for them as well and essentially put them in power, and this story kind of focuses around that.
Very much like The 5 People You Kill in Middlesbrough, as written by Yvonne Hartman, I'd be very surprised if The Red List isn't a narrative born out of the unusual world we've been living in since 2020, especially with the Torchwood main range somehow managing to keep up production and its release schedule every month while still delivering incredible stories. The Torchwood production team certainly deserves a lot of credit, from episodes that represent many walks of life, commentating on world events, and providing a much needed entertainment during these weird pandemic times. Mr. Colchester is such a unique team member of Torchwood. He's straight-faced and tries to remain considerably calm when under pressure, and Paul Clayton delivers every line perfectly. I was expecting this story to be a little bit more light-hearted and daft, and there are indeed funny moments, cracking one-liners, and the two protagonists bounce dialogue off each other so very well, and yet this story isn't as light-hearted as I thought it would be going in. I was going to say that this release doesn't feel very Torchwood in style, but if this year's set of releases has said anything about the Torchwood main range, it's that it brings new locations, new story styles and plot complexity every single month. This format has certainly been challenged over the last year and broadened in scope, from episodes set in the 50s and even outer space.
Then of course we have Miss Mcshane, also known as Ace within this episode, and she basically is more focused around the people themselves and getting people to safety. She does of course have her own charity, and what I like about this story is the way that it commentates on the various different organisations which have originated from Doctor Who, the likes of UNIT, Torchwood and of course A Charitable Earth, which we don't really know too much about. If you're not a fan of Doctor Who books at least, you probably haven't read At Childhood's End, and I think that is probably the best example of A Charitable Earth actually represented within Doctor Who media so far. But yeah, this story basically focuses on Ace trying to help people, and she's not particularly a fan of Torchwood because they essentially are set up to hunt down her best friend. Colchester is trying to show her that Torchwood is now more than that, although they do of course have very different ways of tackling alien involvement, especially when it comes to invasion.
I love how both Ace and Colchester bond throughout this story, sitting on hotel balconies that technically they aren't meant to be on due to them needing to isolate, and the unusual goings-on within the hotel complex surrounding them. Hidden messages and endless breakages are something that rather haunts this story. There is an ominous, spooky nature to this episode, as if the main characters are being watched over a period of time, and you aren't quite sure where the plot is going to lead next. It's evident from the very start of this story that Ace and Colchester have a very different approach to the situation that they're dealing with, but this makes the episode all the more exciting.
Again, of course, we have the usual production team working on this story. The senior producer is David Richardson, the director is Scott Handcock, we have excellent music by Blair Mowat, and the producer is James Goss, with the script editor also being Scott Handcock. And this team works so well together because they managed to create a story which flows naturally. I think that with some Doctor Who stories you do have a set structure which is kind of followed. However, with the Torchwood series it's a little bit of a random sandbox of adventure where they can do anything, and the narrative can kind of choose to speed up and be really quick and action-packed, or you can have these long drawn-out stories set in a hotel room. The characters are slowly being driven mad, they don't know what to do, they can just see their own reflection in a mirror and have very little to distract them from life other than a crossword and annoying noises coming from around the hotel. And you have a story that kind of you just end up easing into as a listener and kind of going on the ride with them, but you're not quite sure where the story is going to go. And I think that James Goss is excellent at writing these stories that you can kind of seamlessly fade into without even realising it, and by the very end you've kind of taken in the whole story and appreciated it, but at the same time you don't quite know what happened. It's kind of like a dreamscape, which I think is really interesting.
The later half of this story starts to deal with the concept of trust. Can you trust those around you? Can you trust yourself? Do you know what's going on? Especially when you find yourself trapped in this very small hotel room. And then automatically, as a listener, you can't help but compare this situation to the initial lockdown. That sense of feeling lost and not quite sure what is going to happen next. But naturally, this story takes it to another level with kind of an extraterrestrial influence in there as well. But once again, this is a perfect example of rather effective storytelling, as especially in the current times that we're in, we as listeners can relate to Colchester and Ace whilst listening to this episode. Perhaps I would have liked to see this adventure go beyond the hotel rooms, as we take a closer look at the disaster unfolding outside of the hotel complex, but I hope that perhaps this is only the beginning and we get to see more from this duo in the future. As always with the Torchwood series, I like how this episode is only 1 hour long and it feels like an immersive puzzle. You are very much in these warm hotel rooms with Ace and Colchester, attempting to work out the clues and find answers as to what's going on within the hotel around them, and the various other members within the other hotel rooms, seemingly carrying out their lives very much like how Ace and Colchester are within this rather unusual public space. Perhaps more explanation in the final act may have boosted this story ever so slightly in my personal opinion, but that could also be seen as a little bit of a compliment, as I didn't really want this story to end. I wanted to find out more, and I wanted to go on another adventure with Ace and Colchester. What excites me about this story is that we get to see post-Miracle Day Torchwood, with a classic series companion that has also within the expanded media met the 13th Doctor herself. The Red List is an example of one of those Torchwood stories which is refreshing and enjoyable, whilst I hope also broadening the horizons for a new chapter of Torchwood in the future.
The Red List is an excellent Torchwood story, especially if you are a fan of Mr. Colchester and of course that older version of Ace, who I certainly hope that we get to see more of in the future, perhaps even her own spin-off series. And I would really love to see more of Mr. Colchester within the Torchwood main range as well, because he is such an excellent member of the Torchwood team, especially since we've seen a lot of experimental releases over the last few months. I think there is certainly a lot of love for Colchester, and we would love to see more releases with him in the future. If you like the 5 people you kill in Middlesbrough as well, this is also a story that I think will very much be up your street, because it's kind of commentating on the society that we live in, and as a result it's an intriguing one to listen to, although will not be for everybody. That is the beauty of this range. Thank you very much for watching this review. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for regular Doctor Who content. Have a nice day. I shall see you all next time. Bye for now.